Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier, 155 pounds, rematch, BMF title. How do we get there? All right. So, Dustin Poirier came out with an idea. I love it. I'm never going to get my way. Like, there's never going to be a time that they do a tournament. There's never going to be a time that the one-man tournament gets revisited. I apologize. The one-night tournament gets revisited, or just a tournament in general. I will fully concede to that. It doesn't take away from the idea that Poirier had, which would be awesome. Dustin wants to do a tournament. He and Gaethje, Max and Ilya, four-man tournament. Now, guys, where this gets very interesting is half of that tournament's already signed. Max and Ilya are already going to fight. This little idea, this little comment by Dustin Poirier is a top draw in the entire sport who's made it very clear that he's got one run left in him. Well, now he's talking about tournaments, so that's two. So what exactly are we being told here by Poirier? To start with, third, how are you going to get Dustin and Gaethje back together? That's the fight that we would all love to see, but how are you going to do it? When they fought before, we got number one contenderships. When they fought before, we got a championship known as BMF. Now we're going to put them out there just because we like to see displays of bludgeoning when it involves heart and grit against two famous guys that we like. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, it's an interesting thing. By the way, is Dustin saying that it's winner against winner, or you've got to lose to advance? Because Dustin isn't saying that he'll pull down to 145 should the BMF all of a sudden stay at 45. He's not saying that. But he is saying that he will fight Gaethje. I think that's the part that I'm getting out of this. And it does appear that a belief that the odds makers have this one right, which favors to Poirier, no matter how slight. And that line has changed, but it has never gone dead even, and it has never favored Max. Now I'm going with my partners over at DraftKings. It has always been Ilya, even if ever so slight. And where they are right now, I call that even money. But technically one guy is a favorite, and it's Ilya. If there was a belief that Max could win, the strap would be up, and that would be a problem. You have two champions, both of which are very promotional heavy. The belt being the greatest promotional tool that we have. You don't want it to get stuck somewhere. In boxing, it's different. They think that's cool. Guy walks out, he's got a couple of belts on him. He's got one around his waist. Couple of belts on him, one around his waist, and then a belt in each hand. Like, that's a cool thing in boxing. In our sport, it's a problem. It's one less main event. It's one less champion. So, when the decision was made to not put the belt up, no matter how polite the decision wanted to look, they didn't want Ilya with both belts. And that's a little weird. I mean, not for nothing. Can we call it that? Can we call it weird? Like, in Dustin's idea of having a tournament, unless Dustin is saying, I will cut to 45, which he won't. Dustin will do the other, by the way. You got to fight for him. He'll go up to 70. He'll cover the spread, but he's not getting down to 45. So that's the tip of the hat by Dustin that he believes the BMF stays with a 55-pounder, and he believes it's going to stay with Max, who, by the way, he's already fought, he's already beaten. It's a title that has eluded him. So as you break this whole thing down, do we need a four-man tournament? Do we need the four-man tournament, which I would absolutely love? Do we need Gaethje versus Dustin, which sells out any arena? I mean, that gets any fight fan's interest. Or do we need to make it clear that Dustin Poirier just called out Max Holloway, right? And if you don't think there's a little sprinkle on that, Dustin Poirier is going further, saying, I think you're going to lose to Poirier. He must be saying that. He's not going to 45. He must be saying that. And I'm in. Dustin versus Max, I'm in, but I'm just sharing with you guys, like, there's a reason that the BMF title is not up. And this form of combat is unique. It's unique from the form that I came from, which was grappling. If you were the world champion in my sport of wrestling, if you were the world champion, if you were the Olympic champion, your next competition, the Olympic championship, is not on the line. Your next competition, the World Championship, is not on the line. In this form of combat, it's different. All chips are in at all times. Jon Jones is our heavyweight champion. I'll use a name that you would understand, weight class that you're familiar with. Jon Jones is going to fight fill in the blank. I don't need to tell you for the world championship. I don't need to tell you that. If you know that Jon is champion, it is a foregone conclusion in our sport that the belt is up. It's the whole reason for holding the fight, but we're not doing that here. Max Holloway is going to walk out their champion. Max Holloway is going to try and collect hardware. If he fails, he wakes up the following day champion. Max Holloway can headline an event. He could be sold to pay-per-view partners, the media, and all of you alike as a champion. And if the belt was up and he was dropping to Ilia Topuria, that statement ceases to be true. Max is not a pay-per-view headliner for a championship. Not if he loses to Ilia Topuria. That statement is no longer true. If the belt were up, but the belt's not up, which preserves the idea that Max can be beat and still headline a championship spot. And he doesn't need to look very far for an opponent because he just got called out by a former opponent who has the most recent victory. That's what happened, guys. Make no mistake. I love the tournament talk. It's not going to happen. I love Dustin versus Justin. I don't know how to convince those, but I don't be the one that makes that phone call to tell them they're going to go out and give the audience what they want, but we're going to lessen this. The stakes aren't quite as high as they were before, but the bludgeoning is going to be the same. Dustin Poirier just called out Max Holloway, and furthermore, he called him out for his belt, BMF, the one that escaped Poirier. Furthermore, he called him out for his last fight ever, and furthermore, Dustin just proclaimed he believes that Max is not going to beat Ilia Topuria.